Bien, entonces, bueno, justo siendo las 5 de la tarde hora colombiana y, no sé, 6 de la tarde en Argentina y siendo ya en la mañana en Australia y en Indonesia, damos pie entonces para la última charla de la doctora Carey Jewett y de Theo Jacob Van Leeuwen. Voy entonces a presentar primero a la doctora Carey Jewett, primero a las mujeres. Carey Jewett is professor in Learning and Technology at the UCL Institute of Education at EOE and works with UCL Knowledge Lab, an interdisciplinarity research center based in the IOE. Her current 5-year ERC Consolidator project, In Touch, investigates digital touch communication. She has a PhD, a multimodal framework for technology mediated learning, Institute of Education, University of London in 2003, funded by ESRC. Her main research interests are multimodal interaction, innovative methodologies, and digitally mediated interaction and communication. So many thanks, Carrera, for being here. I don't know if you are both going to present at the same time. Maybe you want me to present Theo Jacob Van Leeuwen as well. Dear Carrera, do you want me to present him as well?
Yeah, why not? That would be really lovely. Thank you.
Okay. So we are terribly honored to have you and the Professor Theo Van Leeuwen here. So Theo Jacob Van Leeuwen, Theo, born in 1947, is Dutch linguistic and one of the main developers of the subfield of social semiotics. He is also known for his contributions to the study of multimodality. He wrote with Gunter Kress, Reading Images, The Grammar of Visual Design, one of the most influential books of the topic. So many thanks, both of you, to be here. And we are terribly honored to have you here. So it's up to you. It's whenever you desire.
Okay, thank you. And I'm very honored to be invited and to be with you. I'm going to share my screen. I'll just... Okay, so can you see my slide?
Yes, dear.
Yeah, okay. Right, I'm just going to dive straight into my talk then, so that we have as much time as possible together. And okay, so I'm going to talk about multimodality and interdisciplinary conversations about digital touch. It could be interdisciplinary conversations about probably any mode or any mediation of them with technology. Let's see. So multimodality is concerned with this dynamic character of the semiotic terrain of meaning making. And my work is really exploring the place of technology in that process. And most recently, I've been researching how emergent digital touch technologies are shaping what counts as touch and what touch comes to mean. And that's led me to have lots of interdisciplinary conversations with designers, computer scientists, and differently so with different types of artists. And that's raised a challenge for me around how to bring multimodal social semiotics, so building differently on the work of Gunter and Theo, who I get to listen to in a minute. So, and to how to bring multimodality into conversation with other disciplinary methods. And that's what I'm going to focus on now. So for me then, multimodality is interesting because it can account for different means of making meaning and how these are integrated into a multimodal whole. So it's focused on understanding the fundamental social features of meaning in which each mode realizes the social meanings of a community, and where each mode has a kind of distinctive, different offer in terms of its materiality and the histories of its social use. So in terms of the semiotic resources that it makes available and the principles and ways in which they're used. So multimodality search for broad semiotic principles and features does three things which are of interest to me in my work, which is it can use it to identify and describe the modes and semiotic resources that are available in a given situation. We can use multimodality to explore how people use them and interrogate the choices that they make and what motivates those choices, and how the social context that they're in shape those choices. So, and for me, all of that as well with multimodality around contributing to understanding the development of new semiotic resources and the new uses of existing resources. And so over the past 5 years, when I've been exploring digital touch, my work's been shaped by all of these three possibilities of multimodality, but with a particular focus on the last one, that is on a focus on mapping the terrain of how the digital is remediating the semiotic features of touch. And so those concerns listed here really resonate with the people, the computer scientists and the designers who are creating this new digital landscape for us, or with us. And so, working as part of an interdisciplinary team, I've been mapping the terrain of digital touch through a series of 12 case studies, which are shown on this slide and the next, so 6 on this one. And in addition to exploring the multimodal discourses of touch, like in the news and socio-technical imaginaries of remote personal touch, we've honed in on specific advanced touch technologies grounded in social contexts where touch matters, where touch is at stake. So robotic touch in the industrial workplace, for example, biosensing, wearable technologies in the context of parenting. So these case studies ask how existing semiotic resources of touch are being newly shaped by the digital, and how and when these are taken up, and explore the social implications of this basically shifting semiotic regimes of touch in contemporary society. And the changes in the social and therefore the semiotic landscape require new ways of thinking and new understandings of semiotics. And that's what multimodality is all about, I guess, which is going beyond the empirical boundaries of linguistics. And this questioning of, the division of labour among the disciplines traditionally focused on meaning making, so linguistics and speech and writing, semiotics of image and film, musicology on music, and so on. So multimodality, is always pushing us to develop theories and methods that can account for the ways in which modes and media are used to produce meaning, and many of those ways are not well accounted for. And my work with my team is exploring human social interaction as it's digitally mediated through this multimodal and multidisciplinary lens. So over the past year in the In Touch project, with a focus on touch, that's involved collaborations with interactive digital artists, computer scientists, engineers, so building things to explore touch, performance artists making performances, working with choreographers and dancers, and working with designers to kind of create these emergent environments as a way of exploring what touch can be. So the interdisciplinary and exploratory methodological stance that I'm working with brings together concepts and methods for multimodality from sensory ethnography or sensory studies and from art and design-based methods in an effort, I guess, because trying to respond to this emergent, dynamic and ever closer relationship between the social semiotic resources of touch as a mode, the sensory and the kind of affective experimental features of touch. And at the kind of face of emergent touch technologies, all of those things are pretty much in flux. And so that this methodological combination enables us to interrogate touch at different scales of attention and to provide this rich, textured social account of touch. And so we've been using methods traditionally, or associated with multimodality and more generally qualitative analysis, such as observation, mainly observation, also textual analysis of objects. But we've also been combining multimodality with design methods, including speculative fictions, rapid prototyping, cultural probes, and with performance as research as a method. And using 3 of the case studies, I'm going to give you a really quick whirlwind tour, I guess, or a quick sense of what this approach looks like in action. So first then, virtual touch, the virtual touch case study. So this included a study, well, it had lots of different components, but the one I'll talk about now is a study of people's experiences of VR. And so what we did was map the semiotic resources of touch and ask what counts for the participants in the study, what counts as touch in this VR space. So we examined how people used the resources of 2 different games, the choices that they made around how they use these within the constraints of the games, the choices they made, the things they noticed, what motivated them, and we explored how they experienced touch in that environment, what they thought touch was. But the study highlighted a big difficulty of describing and observing touch experiences from a multimodal standpoint alone. So we collected video data, that's still shown here, of each of the participants' VR experiences. And we were guided by the concepts of semiotic resource, materiality, and we generated a descriptive account of their modal interaction, including their body postures, bodily reactions, movement, reactions to touch moments in the VR environment, types of touch, touch actions, touch practices, what they touched, what they didn't touch. But as you can see from this image, really, participants are largely static. Their movement's really limited to kind of upper torso and arm movement because that's what the technology requires. Hand positions were fixed by the controllers, and their faces are covered by the headset, and they're generally really unexpressive because they're immersed in concentrated play, and they didn't talk at all. So the video observations provide some analytical openings and directions between the environment and the player, the participant. But so we turned to sensory touch objects, kind of things shown here, that were objects in the virtual environment. And we used them as tactile probes to help participants recall or flesh out and reconnect with touch. And they were also invited to move and touch with objects to demonstrate and reenact their VR experiences. And that method helped to generate an understanding of the participants' sensory world and hone in on their experience of touch in these spaces. So first off, we developed a set of themes from the observational data, then we explored and expanded them through the interview data, and third, we used the interviews to revisit and review the video observational data. And that iterative analytical process was really valuable for us because it brought together the participants' semiotic actions, their reflections and their experiential sensory experience into an intimate analytical dialogue. And if you're interested in terms of the findings, the work's published in Discourse, Context and Media, and in a journal called Virtual Reality. So while the previous case study focused on virtual digital mediation of a specific kind of touch, the case study around biosensing and touch, which was situated in the context of parenting, really approached parent-baby touch through a more dispersed concept of touch landscapes and trajectories. And we asked questions like, how do emergent smart baby monitors, which use biosensing, which are on the baby's body, how do they remediate parent-baby touch, or do they? And in what ways do they shape the notion of connection and parental knowledge or interpretation of babies' bodies? And how does that influence the formation of parent-baby subjectivities? So alongside a multimodal social semiotic analysis of the device, the owlet, monitoring device itself, we conducted interviews with the design team, talk-aloud interaction walkthroughs with the device, at focus groups with parents, but we also used video reenactments through family home experiences, and here's some images from one of those visits. And we used them to capture the baby's bedtime routine, which is a really important moment in parent-baby touch. And we asked participants to walk, talk, and show us, feel us through the bedtime routine to create a route into their kind of touch practices. So together, multimodality and sensory ethnography together facilitated this exploration of touch through touching. And that generated insights around participants' felt sensorial experiences, which we could use alongside our observation and our multimodal analysis of what was going on from that perspective. So we could bring the kind of semiotic and the affective sensory aspects of touch together, which can't be easily observed from a multimodal perspective. And that supported participants in conveying touch experiences which words failed them when they tried to do. And that work is published in Information Communication Society and in Visual Communication. And my third talk, my third and final example, centers on a 2-year collaboration, a dialogue really, between multimodality and artistic practice with Marluca van der Vlugt and Falk Hubner, who are both at HKU Conservatoire in Utrecht in the Netherlands. And through our exchanges, we used multimodality to do the 3 things that I mentioned at the start of the talk, to identify and describe the modes and semiotic resources of the objects and materials in play in our ECNIS. Here's some kind of images of them in play in our exploration of touch together. And so we were looking at, Falk is a sound composer and a researcher, and we were looking at the acoustic qualities of digital touch. We were looking at touch and the self, touch and others, and the idea of kind of liveness of objects through touch. And we were exploring how people use these, what kinds of practices and technologies, touch rituals, norms around touch, memories, imaginations, and affect. And we were using multimodality to document our collaboration between 2 artists and me as a social researcher. And so multimodality, the multimodal analysis of all of these kinds of materials circulating in the studio, provided a basis for a collaboratively devised interactive performance experiment called Thresholds of Touch. And what that we were trying to do there was create this different kind of environment to explore touch with participants, because touch is really hard to research. It's hard for participants to access, you know, their touch experiences. We have this really limited vocabulary for talking about touch. So throughout the work, we're trying to generate vocabularies as well around touch. And our methods, even within multimodality and semiotics, are very underdeveloped for researching touch. Touch is pretty neglected. So I'm just going to kind of give you a quick tour of some moments in the performance experiment to give you a sense of that space. So it took place just before lockdown in January 2020. We described it as a tactile preparation chamber, like the zero gravity chambers that astronauts are in, and to prepare for space. And as participants entered the space, which was a theatre studio, they could hear folk. You can see him on the screen here, playing through touch a set of capacitive wire curtains that we'd made, or objects we'd made. So that he produced through touch a improvised performance, and the conductive wire was kind of connected through to his sounds made by touching everyday materials, so walking through dried leaves, scraping a spoon on a porcelain tile, and so bringing the multimodal physicality of sound, touch as sound, to the performance, and that prompted memories and new questions about sound and touch throughout. Touch rituals that we'd explored were woven into the performance. For instance, hand washing. One by one, participants were invited up to have their hands washed and dried, and the invitation was intimate, it was personal, it was very performative, and participants spoke later of watching each other, knowing they were being watched, and this created a kind of research, reflective space that prompted an awareness of their own body and others, focused on touch, things that they hadn't thought about, many of them said. And having moved from being touched in the hand washing and touching others and then themselves, Marluka invited participants to place their hands in their lap, and they were given an object was placed in their hands, which had different kind of materials and physical sensations that they then asked to engage with. And this was a surprise to many of the participants, that it sparked dialogues about touch and emotion and, you know, their cultural relationships to touch. And the second part of the performance, just quickly, was an exploratory workshop which used a range of multimodal resources, or invited participants to use a range of multimodal resources to try and process and reflect on their experience of the performance itself in the first part. And that we worked with some of the resources throughout the performance, like the hand washing, and kind of remade them into this space. And these multimodal resources enabled the participants, it gave them many ways to reflect on their experience, and it generated a whole range of multimodal texts, which we're currently analysing. So some of those were enabling participants to use bodily imprinting and reenacting, for example, led to the expression of personal narratives and memories of touch, which I from interviews I've done around touch, I don't think we would have got from a straightforward interview. So, okay, my presentation's just collapsed, so I'll just stop sharing. Hang on.
I use the opportunity to tell you that you have just 6 minutes left.
That's fine. I'll just see if I can get that back up. I think I can. And I'll just, But am I still sharing my screen?
No, dear.
No. What can you see? You can just see me.
Yeah, we're watching at you at the UCL.
Okay. Well, let me just need to get into just moving across my different screens here in a bit of a Zoom moment. Right. Okay. So let's just see where we are at now. So perfect. Now you can see my notes, I believe. I'm just going to swap my slides. Right, and then...
That's right.
Okay.
We're watching at your presentation. Yeah.
So I think we're about here. Right. So this, basically, in this example, then I found this participant at the hand washing station, and her hands were covered in charcoal because she'd been drawing with charcoal. Oh, doesn't like my video. Okay.
Yeah, seems like the video. The video is a problem.
Sharing. Yeah. Okay. What I'll do is I am just going to talk. I think that's the best thing. So you can just see me now, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, just stick with me. So, ultimately, what I'm saying here in this talk is that that by working with different collaborators using different kinds of methodologies, that we can kind of broaden the methodologies that we bring multimodality to, and that can generate different kinds of multimodal texts that like the video that I was trying to show you, and the kinds of texts that people made through the workshop to do with this performance. So the video that I was trying to show was really about this participant starting to kind of uncover her memories through her bodily action with soap suds and charcoal, and that which turned into her telling me a story, a narrative, which she later put into her kind of participant notebook, about a gendered tale of like mud and dirt and breaking the rules and getting into trouble. And it also, it's very strange. She also then asked me to wash her hands for her again. We're kind of repeating the performance that we'd had together. So it kind of created a completely different kind of rapport, gave us different kinds of data around touch, but also it kind of, in and of itself, gave people a different kind of experience that enabled them to think through issues around touch in a different kind of way. And in terms of that particular example, at the level of like the In Touch case study, that particular collaboration around multimodality with Marluka and Falk gave us a new methodological routes into both the semiotic and sensorial aspects of touch, and including participants' vocabularies, their, and all of that works feeding into another performance where we use that event as an archive to reflect on the context of COVID now and post-COVID. And so, ultimately, I've given 3 instances of how multimodality can be brought into conversation with other disciplines. And my message is quite a simple one, which is that in a changing social and semiotic landscape, there are many research benefits to bring multimodality and semiotics into conversation with other disciplines. And I've launched a new, just see if I can share this while I went. There's a new journal, Multimodality and Society, which is a space for such kind of work. And I invite you to just Google that, Multimodality and Society Sage journal, and to think about submitting your work to us. And I think this is a sentiment that really sits at the heart of the exploratory space initiated by IASS and AIS, which even at its inception in the 60s brought together paralinguistics and kinesthetics with the structural study of sign systems. So thank you for listening, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my work.
No, it's an opportunity for us, for teachers, and for many of us who are looking for lights for understand the multimodality. So the journal that you were just talking about is journals.sashpop.com/home/MAS. So it's time to